Hi, everybody.
Welcome, everyone, to Friends Occasionally Not Disagreeing. We are here with you today for our big Thanksgiving episode, I guess, where we're going to talk about all things turkey. Turkey
Gobble,
stew,
gobble, y'all.
Oh, we got a turkey, all right.
turkey drink, turkey vodka.
Gallons and gallons of turkey soup.
We're just going to start this over.
Yeah, I was going to say cut.
Welcome, everybody, to Friends Occasionally Not Disagreeing. We are here with you this week to talk about the review of Rings of Power, which we're a couple weeks behind on this one as well, and I'll take the blame on that one also because I was the slowest one to watch this, as per usual. But we got a full room here of hosts today, which is pretty exciting. We're all seemingly fighting off some sort of health ailment at the moment here, perhaps with the exception of Justin. I'm not positive, but I'll let everybody just... Well, actually, how about this? I was going to ask everybody to maybe share a Thanksgiving memory they have from their younger years or perhaps more recent years as well. And also maybe could tell us what exactly health impairment they have at the moment. So we are coming to you here trying to band-aid this together to get through an episode today. But this is Cody again, and I tested negative for COVID today, but have some kind of terrible crap that's forming in my throat and have slept basically this entire day, except for like 3 hours. I've been awake this entire day. So favorite Thanksgiving memory for me was probably going to my mom's parents, my grandparents' house, and just playing board games on the floor in one of the bedrooms there with my cousin and eating big Thanksgiving dinner and watching football. We always had a football pool that we bet on every year. Back then it was like a dime a square, a quarter a square. And for the longest time, we had the kids' table in the living room versus the adults' table in the dining room. So it's a big deal. And we finally moved over, often because people were married off or passed away. That got dark. But anyway, I always had good memories of Thanksgiving and watching the Lions play and et cetera, et cetera. So who else is here with us today?
I'm Justin. It seems like I'm the healthiest, so I guess I'll go next. Brag. I think I'm obligated to use this memory as my, probably my favorite Thanksgiving one because initially when I was going to propose to my then girlfriend, current wife, I was going to do it in the middle of a D&D game. I was going to be, they were going to get to a milestone in the story. They find a chest, and as I was listing off everything that was in it, I was going to, at the end say, and you find a ring, and I was going to pull it out and, open it up and propose there in front of the game. That didn't happen because people kept leaving town. The game fell apart. So
No.
Instead I was like, okay, well, I have this ring. I have to, pop a question at some point. So I'll do it on Thanksgiving. Sure. It'll be just a nice, quiet evening, the two of us and whatnot. So yeah, I've got the plan all in mind. And then like the day before, my now wife says, oh, my parents want us over for Thanksgiving. I'm like, well, shit, I'm not going to do this in front of her parents. So she's, getting stuff prepped, in the kitchen, something so we can bring. I'm like, okay, now or never. So I popped the question to her while, she was preparing for Thanksgiving. It's close enough to a straight up Thanksgiving memory. And it is like my favorite memory I have from this time of year. So she was surprised because it was a very odd moment, but obviously things worked out. So
I thought for sure you were going to say like they got to the chest and you were like, do you open the chest? And they were like, no, let's just leave it shut. You're like, open the fucking chest. And you're like, no, we're just going to leave it shut.
Instead, that chest will never be opened because that game just completely disintegrated.
Oh.
I'll go. I guess I'm Brett. I'm here. I have a cough again. I had for like 5 weeks straight, and then I like managed to get rid of it for a couple of weeks, and now it's back again. So, other than that, I don't know that I have a specific favorite Thanksgiving memory, but I do have a lot of memories when I was younger of my cousins, because I had a lot of cousins who were a bit older than me, like 4 or 5 years. So there was a bit of a generation gap there, and they would all go outside and play football in the front yard while everybody was like making dinner, getting stuff for set up already. And I just remember there was like one year where it like snowed like a lot, and there were like we're still going out anyways. So, yeah, I would say that's probably the most specific I get with a memory.
Were you at the football?
Right, yeah. A lot of, I mean, we always had Thanksgiving the same. Is at the my grandmother's house on the farm there. Pretty much it's been there every year. I think except for like one or two that I can remember in my lifetime. So a lot of just consistent memories. Just always kind of the same kind of good thing. Families getting together and hanging out at their house. So
cool.
Yeah.
Nice. This is Jovid-19. This is Joe. I got the Ronus.
The Ronus.
COVID finally caught me after all these years.
I thought you called it the Ranus.
I got the Ronus in my Ranus.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Is that like the Omicron sub Delta 2 pi squared variant?
Yes.
Is that how you get rid of it?
But after almost 3 years of living like a hermit and doing everything I could to avoid this fucking thing, it finally got me. So just tested positive today. I'm going to use COVID brain as my excuse for not having any notes or anything intelligible to say during this episode. So that's fun. As far as Thanksgiving memories, the only one that really kind of came to mind when you asked that is kind of a sad but happy one, which was, it had to have been like 2011 or somewhere around there. I was still living in Marquette in a house by myself, and I was working a shitty job that like just did not care about employees, and like taking time off around the holidays was just not possible. So I was kind of stuck there by myself. Mm-hmm. And my dad drove up from Illinois just to spend Thanksgiving with me. So the two of us cooked a turkey and had a feast and hung out, and it was kind of a nice time.
Well, that turned into an okay thought there at the end.
Yeah, that's sweet.
It just reminded me of the time I spent Christmas Eve, I believe, sitting in a Taco Bell by myself in Marquette, eating like the loneliest, saddest value meal ever. Because
that is the saddest thing I've ever heard.
I had drawn the short stick at work that year at Walmart, and I think that was the only time I drew the Christmas shift. So I couldn't go home, so I sat there, and no place had food except Taco Bell, so I sat in the lobby.
Couldn't go home, so you ran to the border.
Yep, which I guess then also implies there were people stuck making food on Christmas Eve at Taco Bell as well. So
yeah, so who should really be complaining here, Cody?
I mean,
I have Taco Bell employee number 5 here to testify against you.
At least they were getting paid. I was paying them. Jeez, I was paying for that experience.
Did the employees at least come out and sing Christmas songs to you?
They did it.
Did they sing Feliz Navidad?
With the terrible Mexican accent.
Oh boy.
Throwback to Christmas Story. Whose house is for sale right now, P.S. We're living through monumental times. The Christmas Story house and the Goonies house are both for sale right now.
Whoa.
And there's a Christmas Story sequel coming out this year for some reason.
Yeah.
I saw something that and I thought it was fake. Is that real?
No, it's real. So A, why, B, the title of this atrocity is, and I shit you not, A Christmas Story Christmas. A Christmas Story Christmas is the name of the movie.
I'd like to add a C as well. There is already a sequel. It's called My Summer Story.
Is that the Marvel one?
But yeah, I've never actually seen it, but
I have seen it once.
Yeah, I did. I did know that there was like a sequel, but this one features Peter Billingsley returning as Ralphie, so they're kind of going all in on it.
Well,
anyway.
At least one of us has gone to Seattle to actually watch the Peters Billingsley written Christmas Story, the musical. So there's that.
Did you go to Seattle specifically for that? Because that would be really weird.
I did not, but
this guy loves Peter Billingsley so much. He
just
flew
happened
across
to
the
be
country.
there. He just happened to be there when it was on. Also, the Christmas Story house we spent some time in as well, which is kind of weird. But anyway.
Well, speaking of things that are based in Seattle,
yes.
How about Amazon?
Oh,
what?
Amazon. Yes.
And their Prime Video, which is home to some programming, I understand.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'd heard that.
You want to talk about that? Is that what you're saying? You're just we
don't have to. We can
just shooting
keep talking about your love for Peter Billingsley.
Yeah, so Peter Billingsley was really the first tattoo I got on my thigh, inner thigh. When I push my thighs together, it looks like his glasses come off his face. So it's kind of weird because the ones on the actually when I take them apart. Anyway, let's move on.
He was in Elf too, I think. He was one of the elves in Elf, I believe.
Oh, I think you're right, actually.
Little Easter egg. Right. Yeah.
That's
all right. Whoa. Amazon presents The Rings of Power, the Lord of the Rings. Is this Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, or is it just called Rings of Power?
I believe it is Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power.
There's that annual.
There's the colon.
Weekly colon checkup. There we go. P.S. Go get your colon checked out.
Yeah, it's important.
All right, boy, we covered all in this podcast. I tell you, we've had colon.
You
checks,
know what?
COVID-19, Thanksgiving memories.
I just want to give thanks for colonoscopies. Had one earlier this year. Everything was clear. It was good.
Good.
Right. Than the alternative.
The Rings of Power.
Speaking of colonoscopies, let's talk about these plot lines from Rings of Power. So here we go. So we already covered the first 2 episodes 10 weeks ago, believe it or not, according to our schedule here, with the debut episodes.
Did.
So we are. Oh, you weren't on that one?
No.
That was when you were boycotting us still?
I think I was out of town or something. I don't know.
All right, that's fair.
So I had a valid excuse.
Yeah, I'm sure you didn't, but that's okay. We covered those, but rather than go through episodes today, we thought it might be a little more interesting and maybe a little quicker to recap here a bit, just kind of telling some thoughts and impressions about the 4 main plot lines through the show, or the through lines, I guess, if you will. I know I mentioned in those first 2 episode review that we did that I really enjoyed that this show had a really organic way of introducing new characters, which seemed to follow through the whole show. I'm pretty sure they never jumped to anyone who was new that we hadn't seen already with an established character, which I still really love about this show. But we'll talk about overall thoughts later. So the show, once it gets set up here and rolling, has basically these 4 plot lines, and I guess maybe we'll handle these in, I don't want to put my own stamp on this, but maybe least important to the first season to most important in the first season. So starters, let's go with this one. It's be an odd one to pick, but let's check out Nori's plot line to start here. So she's one of the Harfoots.
How dare you?
Well, we see which side you play before Joe. He just changed his background to Mordor.
Wow. Anyway, so Nori's plot line essentially has her and the Harfoots, Poppy, and then the stranger who they call a wizard. He's a wizard, Harry. At the end of
He's a hairy wizard.
He sure is a hairy wizard. End of the first season here. So what did you guys dislike about this plot line with Nori and the Harfoots, and this time we spent with the wizard who goes from unintelligible grunts to very eloquent poetry when he speaks?
And it's always nice to see my boy Gandalf again, right? What?
Yeah.
Pew, 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 pew.
Well, I guess I'll lead the charge on this one. I liked how this section started.
Ooh.
And that's about it.
Ooh. Dun, dun, dun.
My word. Boy.
Okay. Well,
do you want to elaborate on that, or do we want to each say what we liked about it before you destroy it?
Let's go with option number 2 there.
Okay. So, Justin, you said you liked the beginning. What do you mean by that?
Well, like the first couple episodes where it established, it seemed like it was giving us a feel for the Harfoots themselves. We got to see a bit of their society. We learned that they're kind of nomadic. We learned that they have like an almanac that they refer to determine like when they do what. So they clearly have like an established history. And it felt like they were the most Tolkien-esque part of the world we were seeing, because they had their own ways, their own customs, their own approaches to doing things, and they felt like they belonged in a living, breathing world. So I liked that. And also they seemed, again, for the first couple episodes, like they were going to be kind of the heart of this show. Like they were simple, but they had a lot of empathy. They cared about each other, and it seemed like they were just a community that would pull together in times of need. And then there's a crisis point with this wizard coming down, and it's like, okay, it'll be very interesting seeing how they handle this. If Nori will try to keep it a secret, if it'll come out sooner rather than later, and how the rest will react. There is a lot of potential. That's what I liked about it.
Okay. Anybody else want to go next?
I thought the Harfoots were delightful. I mean, I agree with a lot of what Justin said, actually. I like the fact that we do get a sense of, their community and kind of their rules. That gets a little weird at a certain point when they threaten to take someone's wheels. But
spoilers, ladies and gentlemen, they're
spoilers. But I mean, like, realistically, they're hobbits. I mean, I know they're not hobbits, but they're the show's hobbits. Yeah. Like, I feel like they're very much kind of set up to fill that void, and I think they do it well for the most part. I like the casting here a lot. I think the actress who plays Nori is great, and I really like Sir Lenny Henry as Sadok Burrows, at least in the majority of the series, the leader of the Harfoots. I think he does a great job. And yeah, I mean, honestly, I had maybe a few minor quibbles with the Harfoot stuff, but for the most part, I just kind of enjoyed my time with them.
Yeah, I would say I had pretty similar opinions on that. I thought like again, like Justin said, getting to more of the Harfoots kind of they have more of a culture built up, and the rest of the show is kind of like just these other peoples that you kind of like have to assume they're you make like stereotype kind of thoughts about, because they're elves and they're goblins and orcs and that stuff. You don't really get anything else beyond that. So the Harfoots, I thought that was pretty cool. A lot of the scenes with them were kind of whimsical and kind of heartfelt and stuff, and it was a cool kind of the way they put this stranger kind of comes out of nowhere and really kind of shakes them up, their world, because that's like the opposite of what they want, is to have this huge unknown person with them that could be a danger they don't know. And like I say, like how they're going to handle that was pretty interesting to see. As far as like that plot line kind of goes through, I thought it was pretty good throughout, as far as I was concerned. It was as you mentioned, like the stranger kind of goes from not even be able to speak words to being very well spoken by the end, which I mean, yeah, you can kind of, they don't really give a reason for it other than he's just kind of like getting his sense of himself back. Why that would prevent him from speaking before, I have no idea. So that's kind of odd, but overall I felt like it was pretty well done throughout. I can't say that I have really any major complaints. So
yeah, I enjoyed the Harfoots as well for the most part. I think you guys covered it really well already, but the wizard in particular, maybe this is more of a quibble than not, but like just the ridiculously like slow pacing of him like figuring out who he is and getting powers back and interacting with the world and things like that kind of drove me a little bit nuts. But one of the things I also liked about this plot line, which I didn't hear anybody say either, and I don't know their technical names, so apologies, but were like the three wizards in white who were like chasing him down essentially. I don't know what they were or what their classification is, but I enjoyed them quite a bit too. I thought they looked genuinely really creepy, and especially like since the wizard was tied in with the Harfoots, like they seem to be an extremely capable enemy. Like it would be really terrifying if I was a Harfoot and I had these things around me as well, just for like the powers they had, which seemingly were quite a few as well. Disappearance and shape shifting, and there was some other things in there as well, elemental controls and things like that. It seemed like.
I'm pretty sure that one wizard was actually Eminem in disguise.
Yes.
Boom, 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 boom. Yeah, but I don't know. And then I guess we can hit on negatives here too. Joe mentioned Gandalf. We should point out that was not confirmed, right?
It's not confirmed.
To be Gandalf, and they definitely cast someone that looks far more like Saruman than Gandalf. I don't know if that's on purpose or not, though. But we have not seen in the old show Saruman have any sort of personality like this guy does. So
true.
So Justin, you sound like you had some negatives you want to get into with this plot.
Okay.
Oh boy, share everybody.
So yeah, this is my take of it. So. You know how I said the first couple episodes made the Harfoots seem like they were very communal and caring and empathetic? They even have like a song about it. You know, nobody goes off trail and nobody walks alone unless you break your leg, and then we'll take your wheels. They turn on a dime. They are monsters. It's just like within the same episode that they do that song, I think it's Nori's father breaks his ankle or something. They're like, well, we gotta press on with our pilgrimage soon. If you can't keep up, we're just gonna leave you behind. It's like, did you not just listen to the song? You were just singing to the children in your society. and then like later on they're doing like a remembrance thing for the Harfoots they've lost over the years, and if you listen to it, it's not like, oh, we were set upon by wolves and poor Stumpney was torn apart or whatever. It's no, they got stuck in the snow and we left them behind. Like half of the names they list are people who just decided, well, we're not gonna try to help you, you can't keep up, sucks to be you. So these little bastards are monsters.
It's hard out here for a Harfoot.
This was like basically the Oregon Trail Middle Earth edition.
That's true.
Kind of, yeah. But I mean, their whole society is built on moving from place to place. You think they'd want to keep as many families with them as they could.
They have to keep moving though.
Yeah,
listen, they all knew the rules when they signed up for being Harfoots.
No, they didn't, because they teach their children lies.
That's every good society, Justin. See, toothpaste, toothberry, Easter bunny.
So that right there, it kind of encapsulates my main problem with these guys. They're hypocrites and they're liars and they are terrible people.
I mean, the taking his wheels thing is pretty fucked up.
Yeah. So
it did feel like it came out of left field.
Listen.
Yeah, it's just, and the rest of his family, they're able-bodied. Are they supposed to choose between the group and their father who is injured? I mean, it's monstrous.
They don't have a way to transport a guy with a broken foot. It's not like they have any carts or anything.
Yeah, if only they had like a wagon that they could put him in.
But they need him to pull the wagon because reasons, I guess. It's not like they have a wizard who, is surprisingly strong for being a wizard.
I don't know. They also seem like a culture who would have like domesticated rabbits or something.
I was going to say, couldn't they like domesticate like cats or rabbits or something to pull their carts? Like, I'm not sure exactly how big they are, but
that's a good point.
Yeah,
like
dogs. In one of the Hobbit movies, Radagast had like big old rabbits that were pulling his like sleigh or whatever it was. So,
well, he hasn't landed on the Earth yet with the shiny meteorite. So,
true. Apparently,
because I don't get that plot at all. But anyway,
yeah.
Why are wizards delivered through meteors or comets or?
Well, in the lore, they're not. I think Gandalf came to Middle Earth by boat in the Silmarillion, if memory serves.
Lore doesn't matter in this show.
You're not wrong there.
Made of rock.
Yes, Facebook.
But I mean, that also brings up the whole lore thing. It brings up the question of those three figures in white. I have no idea who they're supposed to be. If I hadn't had the subtitles on, I would not have even known what they were called. One's like the Artificer or something like that.
Yeah.
But that doesn't ring any bells. They can't be the Nazgul, despite the fact that they look like Nazgul towards the end when they get banished or whatever, because those rings haven't been forged yet, and the rings for the Kings of Men are what turned them into the Nazgul. I mean, there's I have no idea who they are, and that makes them a little. I mean, it's supposed to make them mysterious, I'm sure, but instead it just makes them needlessly confusing. especially because
seems like the show definitely hints at like there's this whole wizarding aspect that like we haven't been privy to prior in the other series.
Yeah,
like there's a magic wizarding part of the world where wizards go to train and do these things. And
first of all, it's called Hogwarts.
They only let kids in if they are declaredly boys or girls.
Do we want to get into? I can't remember if we mentioned exactly why they were looking for the guy who fell out of the meteor. I don't remember if we touched upon that yet.
No, I don't think we did.
Okay, so they were looking for him because they think he's Sauron, and the show really, really wants you to think he's Sauron. By the way,
nobody actually thought he was Sauron, though.
Exactly,
not even for a second.
There was a part.
I thought there might have been a chance he was Sauron.
There was a part in like episode 2 where Nori falls into the meteor crater and she like rolls through the flames and she's like, the fire isn't hot, and that I thought maybe was a clue that he was actually evil, or because in episode 1 when Galadriel's leading her forces through the frozen north, it's so evil the fire doesn't give off heat. I thought maybe
that just felt like a red herring to me. Like I think they wanted you to think that, but I at no point did I actually really think that he was Sauron.
Yeah, but that was like the only time. Anyway, so these 3 mysterious figures are searching for him because they think he's Sauron, and they want to give him back his memories or whatever. And they find him. He doesn't remember anything, and they kind of get into a clash, and they start beating the crap out of him, which doesn't really make a lot of sense if he does regain his memories, because he's going to remember you did that. And he's a lot more powerful than you are. So, yeah, it felt like they needed to shoehorn a fight scene in, with magic in this show about magic. So that's felt like it was very sloppily put together to me.
Well, that kind of goes back to like the wizarding aspect I'm talking about. Like it seemed like they were there specifically to like retrain him and get him to be remembering who he was. But like, where did he come from? Why did he land on the planet? Like, was he reborn? Was he off someplace? Who sent these people to go do this? Like,
yeah, like a prophecy or something.
But
they don't say.
Hopefully that'll be answered in season 2 if it ever gets made. Yay.
I think contractually they're obligated to make 5 seasons. It is, I think.
I mean, Bezos has already thrown so much money into this. I'm sure it'll be. That's one thing that's interesting about this series is my understanding is that Jeff Bezos is like just a huge Tolkien nerd.
Oh, okay.
So that's why this exists in the first place. And that's why they threw literally $1 billion into it already. So hopefully that means that it'll actually get to run all 5 seasons, but
wasn't he just in the news as declaring he was going to give all his money away?
I don't know.
Yeah, he did say that like before he dies, he's going to give his money.
Oh, well, it's different.
He's going to give it all away
before he dies
to Rings of Power.
Spoiler warning: he doesn't intend to die.
32
he's developing immortality in the lab.
In the last season, Rick Grimes coming back. All right. Anyway, okay. Anything else on this plot line we didn't cover?
I mean, I would just like to point out that fight scene actually was really cool.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Cinematically, it was really well done. And
not for Sadok, it wasn't.
Oh.
Sure.
I do find it a little suspect that all 3 of these mysterious figures were distracted by the sound of a rock being thrown. You think at least one of them would have stayed behind? Well, I wish they did, but I mean, initially it doesn't look like they did. So, but otherwise, it was a fun scene. Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll move on to the next plot line here. Let's talk about Joe's favorite plot line here with Arondir and Bronwyn and Theo and Adar and what are we calling these? The orcs, I guess?
Yeah.
Yes.
We decided they are the orcs. So how did you guys like this plot line? Or what were your positives about this plot line, I guess?
Bronwyn is very attractive.
I'm not disagreeing.
that's my biggest positive.
I like the interactions between the 2 of them. I think some people online said they kind of wish they had seen more like concrete love or feelings between Arondir and Bronwyn, but I actually liked their kind of
just the longing,
the hinting, at what was out there rather than just telling it. And I liked everything with her son Theo and the sword, which kind of looked like it was going to go one direction for a while.
And then it's just a key.
Yeah, which is kind of weird, right?
That was bizarre.
Which we can talk about that too.
Yeah.
I think with this, we can get into it, but like with this storyline overall, I liked a lot of like individual moments and components of it, but I feel like none of them really added up to anything meaningful.
I feel like you could say that about a lot of things in this show.
That might be true too.
But like, as an example, kind of what you're talking about, for me at least. So there's a major plot point throughout a lot of this is the orcs are digging tunnels throughout, the land, trying to get from point A to point B for reasons that you find out later.
The upside down.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's how else are you going to get there? Right. But they've got them covered with like netted tarps essentially, which is, I guess, enough to hide, what they're doing. Which, okay, sure, I can suspend that disbelief. But I swear there's a part where, because Arondir gets captured by them at one point, and someone says something like, "Oh yeah, they've been ransacking, villages, as they go," and I'm like, if they're trying to be undetected, that's not how you do it. Because, I mean, if you're ransacking villages, something is going to get burned at some point, and smoke is visible from a long ways off. And eventually you're going to get people from further out who are going to be like, "Oh, I haven't heard from Uncle Barnaby in a long time. I wonder what happened." And it's people are going to notice when entire villages just pop off the map. And
I mean, go ahead.
Go on.
I'm not saying that like they're not trying to be stealthy, but I think the point of like covering their work is more to protect them from the sunlight, which they're like allergic to.
Sometimes they're allergic to it. Sometimes, because I swear there are scenes where they're out in the open and nothing bad happens to them.
I think they mostly like stay in the shadows and in buildings and stuff in the scenes.
There was a spot later on, I want to say, because I have my notes by episode, so they're not exactly like by plot line. So give me a second here.
Well, while he looks, I was just thinking instead of digging tunnels and putting tarps over top, it probably would have been easier to just put some stakes in the ground and put tarps over them.
That's a good point.
Rather than move all that earth.
But or just walk around carrying a tarp over you the whole time.
Umbrellas.
Also, speaking of the going to the tunnel for a second, so there's this like big confrontation with Arondir and like the slave driver, for the orcs trying to make the elves chop down this tree because its roots are in the way. I don't know if they know how trees work, but if you chop down the top of the tree, the roots are still there. So that whole confrontation seemed entirely pointless to me. If they were telling them to tear up the tree, that would be different. But no, they tell them to cut down the tree, and that is not going to get it out of their way digging through the ground.
Maybe that was just an anger moment.
Maybe.
I mean, it made Justin angry, so
apparently so.
I mean, you're not wrong.
You can't really dig up the roots without knocking the tree down as well. So
yeah, that's true too.
Maybe it's just to get the tree out of the way so it doesn't fall on you when you are digging the roots out.
I suppose that's fair, but okay. I think I found it. So this is in episode 6, I want to say, where there's I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but eventually to try and save the Southlands, the Numenorians, who are islanders from across the sea, they get convinced to come to Middle Earth to, try and root out Sauron, or like stop his machinations that are going on, unbeknownst to everybody. So there's a big extensive battle where it's the Numenorians versus the orcs, and they eventually get routed, and they're fleeing in broad daylight. And it doesn't seem like there's any evidence that the sun is affecting them at all. It's just like, I think even during the battle, some of them have rags on and stuff, but it just doesn't seem like the sun is really that much of a factor unless it needs to be for the plot. Also, as to show that I'm not all doom and gloom, a goofier aside is, I can't help but wonder, what if the orcs decided to invent just large hats? They could have just walked around and been fine. Like just an army of orcs in sombreros.
Big fedoras. Cowboy hats.
Los orcs.
Los orcos.
I don't know. Fair point, I guess.
But go on.
No, go ahead, Justin.
No, I was just going to be beating the same dead horse. Continue.
I was just going to say, I mean, going back to like positive things about the storyline,
Yeah.
which kind of turns into a negative thing, but I liked Adar. Like, I was intrigued by Adar. I thought the actor was really good. Shout out to Benjen Stark from Game of Thrones.
Mm.
Oh.
Recognize the face now, yeah. I didn't until you said that.
Yeah. But I was intrigued by the character because, you know, he is ostensibly the villain, but he also seems to have a genuine love for his orc babies.
Yeah.
Like, he's like kind of trying to save them and, you know, make them and other people realize that they have value. But then he's also kind of an abusive father. So it's like weirdly complicated. Like, there's the scene where he makes one of them stick his arm out into the sun, like, which is kind of messed up. But I just thought it was an interesting kind of complicated character. I don't ultimately really know what his role in things is because, and I mean, I guess maybe that's a question for you guys.
Yep.
He seems to be an enemy of Sauron.
Yes.
At one point, he claims he killed Sauron, which we obviously know is not true. But I guess what do you think his sort of, is he just his own entity? Is he allegiant to any force, or what do you think his deal is?
I didn't really get a good feel for what he was in the story at all. By the end, and I don't know what to think about it. Maybe just like some sort of wild card that they could use to do whatever they need to later on.
Yeah, my only thing is he's a secondary villain, maybe, because he, like you said, his motivations are to try and create a world where his orc children can belong. And I don't think he thinks he can do that through Sauron. He's just trying to take the reins himself. And I don't know if that makes him exactly a villain or some sort of like anti-hero for his race or what, but it really, I don't think he's connected to the overarching plot aside from a way to get focus on Middle Earth from like Galadriel and the Númenóreans and such. Because he is kind of the impetus that gets them over there.
Yeah, I almost wonder if, if he even shows up in season 2, I wonder if Sauron's just going to kill him and like take over leadership of the orcs, and that's how Sauron gets his orcs. Like, I don't know.
I mean, I definitely think that's possible. He was an interesting character, I thought, just from the point of like, he's not an orc, he's not an evil person, like he's an elf. So
yeah, like
there's like plot you could kind of go back and take a look at for that, like how he got that role, why he worked for, who's the big bad that they don't reveal in this episode, like he was already dead. What was his name? Morgoth.
Morgoth, yeah.
So whoever that character monster was, but then it is interesting, like, since he said he killed Sauron, did he lie about that? Did he actually kill Sauron? Like, if this wizard flew out of the sky, who the hell knows? Like, maybe Sauron landed in the ocean and
he was that big worm thing from episode 1 and 2.
Yeah, I don't know. But he's an interesting character. Kind of intrigued to see where he'll go. Yeah, I don't know if he'll end up having a showdown with the heroes or with Sauron, and that's just, like you said, how he gets the orcs, and it's just a plot device. But it seems like they could take him a few different directions. So,
do we want to talk about what their tunnel was actually for, or do we want to save that for like Galadriel's plot line, because that kind of interweaves?
I mean, I think we know what the tunnel was actually for.
Well, those of us with a video feed, but
yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so
those tunnels are fair game here. We got a different tunnel we got to talk about in a bit.
Okay, so basically the orcs are carving a dry riverbed, for lack of a better term, all the way across to this old dam that spoilers, I mean, this whole thing is full of spoilers, but the sword that Theo found ends up being not a sword, but a key that unlocks basically the floodgates to this dam. And once the tunnels are connected, all the water pours into this channel and into a a nice, convenient volcano that sets off a gigantic steam eruption and essentially creates Mordor.
And he's buying a stairway to Mordor.
Which was a neat idea, even if that's not quite how volcanoes work. But still, it was cinematically, it looked cool.
Yeah.
That sequence was cool, but speaking of cinematically, for the listeners at home, my background right now on our Zoom call is a screenshot of when it is revealed that the area that has now been created is going to be called Mordor in the future, where I forget who Eddar is talking to, but they're talking about how he has like a new name for this place, and from now on it will be known as, but he doesn't say it. But on the screen, Mordor just appears. The word Mordor appears in like this, what's supposed to be like a dramatic, spooky font. And hopefully this isn't spoilery. I really liked this series overall. This was one of the dumbest moments in anything I've ever seen in my entire life. It just makes no sense. It's not something that they do again anywhere else in the series. Like, I don't know why he couldn't have just said Mordor.
It did feel very video gamey.
Like, yeah, the fact that, and like, it's done so dramatic. If I recall correctly, I think the letters kind of like slowly burn their way across the screen. I could be wrong on that, but I think it's like this whole dramatic thing where it's like Mordor. And like, I'm a very casual Lord of the Rings fan. I haven't read any of the books. I've seen the movies. But like anyone who knows anything about this story, as soon as you see this volcano and all this lava and all this shit that goes down, you're like, oh, that's Mordor. And so like the fact that this is supposed to be a reveal, like, is not surprising at all. And just the way they portray it just made me so mad.
Yeah, it's very much the butler did it kind of moment.
Yeah.
Where it's like, no shit, Sherlock.
I had seen all of the old Tolkien stuff and I had never heard of Mordor. So don't,
What?
Just kidding.
I've heard that one can't simply walk there, so
that's true. It's so true. Okay, anything else on this one? I liked the interactions with just Arondir and the humans and like trying to defend themselves off in the tower and
I mean, I did. I liked the characters. I mean, I did like, we see a lot of racism against Arondir, anti-elf racism.
Mm-hmm.
And I like how, he kind of...
You like the racism, is that what you're saying?
Well, no, I like how they show that, but then he kind of, silently gets to tell everyone to go fuck themselves by saving their asses, or at least, a lot of them, because he's a decent person / elf. I just like the character dynamic.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, they're not humans, technically speaking.
Yeah. There is one other thing now that you mentioned, like saving most of the people. So there's this isn't the only time this happens in the show, mind you, but after the initial orc attack against Bronwyn and Theo, she like takes an orc's head to like the city council or whatever, and it's like we need to get out of here. Bad things are brewing, and they get to I can't remember the name of the town where they hole up, but there's a confrontation there where she's like up on a stage or like a pedestal, and she's saying how we need to band together, we need to fight this menace, we need to all come together for this common good. And then this like wizened old codger is just like, but what if they aren't evil? And half the crowd like immediately is like, this guy is right. And
is that Waldrig? I think that guy's name was.
I think so. Yeah.
I mean, he was the leader of the town that they came from.
But even so, it's just like one word.
It's not like nobody though. It's like the mayor being like, "Hey, we should do this instead."
Well, I mean that's. Go ahead, Justin.
The whole crowd goes from being behind Bronwyn and cheering, raising their arms and whatnot, and this old man who probably has more lice than teeth is just like, but what if they're not bad? And like instantly, like flipping a switch, half the crowd is like, oh, maybe
it's not just that. I mean, it's not just that though. It's the fact that so many people actually follow him to go to meet up with this invading force. Like,
right, exactly.
I mean, like they don't really know the background, but like they know that these people are attacking them, and they're just like, oh, maybe they'll just let us hang out with them.
Yeah, and it's just such an about face, and it's not the only time this sort of thing happens in this show, and it's aggravating. So, yeah, most easily swayed people I've ever seen.
That's fair.
I can think of a group that gets swayed easier, but we won't get into that right now.
Oh,
shout out to Twitter, but let's move on. All right, are we good on this? Anything else for this plot line? Okay,
I think
great.
Yeah, I think we're good.
Let's go on to Elrond's plot line here. So some major characters here we get are Durin and Gil-galad and Celebrimbor, and
Disa,
other little ones. Yeah, Disa as well.
Do not forget Disa.
No, I would. She'd probably kick my ass. I wouldn't do that. Durin's unseen kids, or do we see the kids at one point?
You see them briefly.
Yeah, very briefly.
Yeah, one's like wearing an old helmet or something, and he's like, "Put that down," or it's very brief.
So this is an interesting plot line, and we could talk, I guess, right up to the end of the show, and then it's going to really intersect with Galadriel's plot line here. But let's kind of go through, what did you think of... This is mostly like the Elrond Durin show for most of the season. So
I got to tell you,
how did this work?
I would watch the Elrond Durin show. This is my favorite plot line because of those two characters. Like, I will say, I mean... Again, being a fan of the movies, I was a little nervous when I learned that this series was going to involve a young Elrond and a young Galadriel. And I mean, while the actor who plays Elrond here is certainly not Hugo Weaving, like I really like him in the role. I really love the interplay between him and Durin. They believably feel like they are very old friends, I love the fact that Durin is pissed off at Elrond initially because he just hasn't been around for a long time. Like, he missed, all these life events. And, there's a lot of the time of this, storyline, it's the odd couple, it's kind of, it almost plays like a sitcom a lot of the time, where it's, these two friends from different worlds who like just can't help liking each other and caring about each other. Yeah. Excuse my awkward COVID cough break there. It's complicated because Elrond is there for a reason. Gil-galad convinces him to go, and he's trying to suss out the existence of this mythical ore. And so, that's kind of where like the conflict in the storyline comes from, is Elrond is a little bit torn between his loyalty to his people and his loyalty to his friend. But yeah, I really like this whole thing.
Yeah, I do agree with Joe on this. This ended up being the strongest of the main plot lines, because you get a feel for just how out of touch elves can get with the rest of the races in this world, where 20, 30 years, whatever it is that Elrond's been gone, it's the blink of an eye to him. And Durin's like, I haven't seen you for like a quarter of my life. And you just walk back in here, and it's everything might be fine to you, but that hurts. And it does do a lot to illustrate, just how these different peoples experience time, experience, life itself. And they're back and forth, with Elrond's mission to go there, yet his obligation to his friend. There's a lot of grounds for really, emotional storytelling there. And doesn't always hit, but when it does, it's really moving. And I do have to give credit where it's due. I liked this whole part of the show, because it felt it was the emotional side of things, whereas another plot line was, say, like the lore side of things, as much as the lore matters here, and another one was the just the world building side. Just kind of each plot line felt like it tried to cover its own ground in some way, and this was definitely the emotional core of the show, I think. Whereas I initially thought it was going to be the Harfoot story, and well, say la vie. But yeah, this was good. This section for the most part.
I'm going to repeat this in case the audience didn't hear.
Oh boy.
Brett, any thoughts on this section?
Similar thoughts to Joe and Justin here. One thing that we touched on in the first episode that we did on the first podcast on the first two episodes was that the kind of elves by nature are a little bit kind of dry. They're an interesting culture and history and all this other stuff, but as a people are kind of dry. So to have this relationship and all this interaction between Durin and Elrond kind of permeating the majority of the elf kind of side of the story really helped it a lot. Because I agreed, as you guys said, like it felt it was kind of really emotional at times. Like you actually, when Durin was telling the story about this is why I'm angry with you, like you could feel that that would really be true, and it really came out as feeling like a very honest thing. Just the bickering, the banter between them is very much, as we mentioned before, is very much the same as from the movies. It just we're talking a lot about here about the just Durin and Elrond also, but I think the elves as well, there's a lot of interesting things. It doesn't necessarily, like, I don't know, it doesn't drive the story as much. It's more like getting to places, but the heart of this all was definitely with Durin.
Cody, do you want to expand on your?
No, I just have gas. Really bad symptoms right now. I'm just trying to breathe. That's all.
I feel you, man.
No, I'm just kidding. This plot bothered me a little bit. I'll just put that out there. I don't fully buy the whole, like, it's been 20 years, come see me type thing. Like, their lifespans are different, but like time works the same for both of them. Like, don't give me that crap. 20 years for an elf is the same as 20 years for a dwarf. It's the same 20 years.
I don't know if it's true.
It is totally true. They live in the same universe with the same laws of time. It's completely true.
That's like saying a day for a fruit fly is the same as a day for a human.
It is literally the same. It's a bigger percentage of their life, but it's literally the same day.
Not in their perspective.
I mean, I don't know if you would perceive it the same way. If you're a being that lives thousands of years, 20 years is really like nothing to you.
Yeah, it's like, I took a vacation to, Numenor or whatever, and it was a good 20 years. But
listen, if you're a 5-year-old
kid, I sat in the library and read a book, read all the books for 20 years.
If you're a 5-year-old kid and a year goes by, that's like taking an extra 20% of your life that just grew up. If you're 20 years old and a year goes by, it's a 20th of your life. I get that. It's the same distance, though. It's the same time span that goes by for both of them. So,
but it's not as important to one as it is
I'm not
to the
saying
other.
It's as important, but I'm saying like
it's relative, though.
This idea that he's like, I didn't see you because 20 years gone by and it wasn't anything, but it was still 20 years. He still did 20 years worth of things during that 20-year span and like didn't think to go see his friend regardless of how long or what their lifespans are.
That's because the elves are jerks.
I don't buy that. Yes. Second of all, I don't buy the relationship between these two. Like if one of you and I had this relationship, I'd be like, I'm done with you and just move on, to be quite honest, because these, like, Durin is like the most wishy-washy, pansy-ass character maybe in this whole show.
What?
It was like, you're my best friend. I don't trust you. No, you're my friend. I think we should get him this stuff out of the mine. No, I'm highly suspicious. I think the elves have a hidden agenda, Father. Like, he goes back and forth in every scene, how he flip-flops. Does he like this guy or doesn't he? Do they have friendship or don't they? Like, it's annoying.
Listen, Cody.
Go for it.
You're not born of nobility, so I wouldn't expect
That's
you
true.
to understand the weight that places on one's shoulders.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well,
You have not seen the things that he has seen.
You have not seen the things that I nor
he
Durin
hasn't
have
seen anything because his dad won't even let him see anything. So that's not even a good argument. But anyway,
I'm just saying. I mean, it's true of most of the characters in the show, but especially it's especially of Durin and Elrond. Like, both of them, they do have this long history together in this friendship, but they are also both trying to weigh like their roles within their own societies and with their people.
well, there is that.
You know?
I give you that. There is there's the pulls from their society that they both are facing as well. But I'm just saying, in general, if you're going to praise their friendship between the two characters, like, I don't know. I just feel like if one of you was like, I got this major grudge with you, and then we made up with it, you wouldn't immediately be like, oh, now I have this other major grudge, and I'm not sure we should have made up, and now we're good again, and now we're bad again. I'm like, come on.
I mean, honestly, if anything, I have more beef with Elrond because Gil-galad is just shady AF from the beginning.
Yes, fact.
Like, there's not a moment where I'm like, oh, he's totally telling Elrond the truth and Elrond should trust him. Like, he might as well be like twirling his mustache or something.
Yeah, let's talk about those other side elf characters, because both him and Celebrimbor I was like, these are obviously bad guys.
Yeah. Also,
I don't know how stupid Elrond is, but clearly they're setting him up for something bad to happen. But it was that the case? I don't know? ? I don't think so.
Every time Gil-galad was on screen, I had trouble paying attention to what he was saying because he looks like Liam Neeson's weird brother or something.
You're not wrong.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's at the end of the day, I mean, I don't know if either Gil-galad or Celebrimbor is evil. Like, I think they do both think they're doing the right things for their people, but the way they're portrayed in this show, it does feel kind of like sketchy. I don't know.
Celebrimbor is just an idiot.
Yeah.
He definitely seemed evil, but...
Well, yeah, I mean, you probably know a lot about him from the lore, Justin, I'm assuming.
He's supposed to be like one of the greatest elven smiths ever, like in the history of the world. Hundreds, if not thousands of years of experience. And he doesn't know how alloys work. He doesn't know that the entire purpose of mixing a metal with another metal is to strengthen the base metal. It's just that actually comes up towards the end of the show, and it floors me. I've taken like one blacksmithing course, and I know this. So it's just a matter of why do the writers just not understand how metallurgy works? Is that it?
When did you take a blacksmithing course?
I needed an art elective at Northern, and blacksmithing was an option.
So I mean, my question is, Cody, why are you surprised that Justin took a blacksmithing course? That's like the most on-brand thing I've ever heard.
And I wrote the course bulletins for the college, and I don't remember blacksmithing being a course at the college. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it was fun. The instructor was pretty harsh in his grading, but it was a good experience.
Was this just in some guy's basement in town? And
no, there is a forge in the art building. It's got
really,
it's got like 4 or 5 like coke burning forges where you
coke burning. You say
coke burning.
Okay, we're getting off topic here, but but yeah, it was a fun experience, and
you have to grasp the hilt with both hands.
The pointy end goes into the other man and all that.
That might actually be more impressive than me getting college credit for bowling.
Right? Ooh, I did that too.
Yeah.
I did it twice.
Really?
Yeah.
Cool.
I didn't get credit the second time, but it's okay.
Gotcha.
I took it with my ex-girlfriend and we got back together, so it's okay.
Let's go for the game and impressor. Rings of Power.
Ladies and gents, we're going to finish our episode here, and we'll come back next week with the last plot thread for the Rings of Power, and then we'll also talk about all of our final thoughts about all this and our ratings, of course, which I know you're all dying to hear. So we'll wrap it up today and say happy Thanksgiving to all our listeners out there. So happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving
to all of you from all of us here at Fond. Stop at our store and buy some merch. What?
I refuse to celebrate genocide. Happy Thanksgiving!
I don't know that Thanksgiving itself was genocide, but that's a whole nother.
So many turkeys lost.
So many turkeys.
We should presidential pardon all of them.
We sure should.
Anyway, all right. Joe has requested that we take this episode out. In what style, Joe?
I mean, I was joking. The style of the Misty Mountain song from the first Hobbit movie.
The Hobbit movie where nothing happens. Here we go, everybody. We'll see you next time on Don't they spend like 10 minutes just like moving dishes in that movie?
Yeah, there's like a bunch of songs in that movie. There's like they're singing and like throwing dishes around and shit. Then like it gets all somber. Yeah, then it gets somber and they're all like, blah, Misty Mountain. And, yeah,
what you don't
That's
realize,
why they had to make it into 3 movies.
Misty Mountain's actually about a stripper they knew whose name was Misty. You can figure why they called her Misty Mountain. Yeah, exactly. All right, we'll see you next time, everybody. Bye.
Bye.